My name is Lindsay McGonigal, and I'm going to talk to you about sexual assault survivors and their health concerns. The population. A common theme throughout the articles analyzed is college-age females are consistently the majority of sexual assault victims. 1 in 4 women will experience unwanted sexual contact, sexual assault, or rape while attending college. Those who have experienced sexual assault prior to the age 16 through 25 are twice as likely to become victim once in college. Their background will play into this statistic. Although college-age females would make up a greater portion of the population, many victims are male. The size of the population: Utah, 1 in 3 women will fall victim to sexual assault. Utah currently ranks 17th in the nation for the most rapes reported per year. As for the United States, 1 in 6 women will fall victim to rape. Every 73 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. Internationally, South Africa has the highest rate of rape in the world. 1 in 4 men admitted to committing rape. In other countries, the population at risk changes. For example, in India, it was found that the majority of sexual assaults were to young married females. It was found that the lower the education level of the female and her husband, the greater the likeliness of sexual assault. Social determinants of health include culture. Commonly held misconceptions in the college-age men included victim blaming, entitlement to sex, and female stereotypes. These were all responses when asked about their thoughts on sexual assault. Many males, when surveyed, included statements such as, "In a close relationship, you should expect to get sex," and "In a relationship where I commit myself, sex is a right." Another social determinant is housing. College housing provides a close proximity to the opposite sex, for example, dorms, frequent exposure to alcohol, and a collection of strangers living together. Another social determinant: exposure to social disorder. Often attendance at a college party is exposure to social disorder, as many introduce attendees to alcohol, drugs, and violence. A lack of social support. College brings new stresses and anxieties, and studies have shown that first-year college students are most likely to experience some sort of sexual assault. Peer influences and the deep consideration for peers' thoughts often provide situations that aren't healthy or safe. The root causes. Why are college-age females the majority of sexual assault victims in the U.S.? One stance: alcohol and drugs. Many sexual assaults on campuses involve drugs and alcohol, one or the other, or both. 15% of first-year college students reported being raped while incapacitated. Peer pressure often leads to participation in uncomfortable social activities, including trying drugs and alcohol or participating in unwanted sexual activities. Another stance for why college-age females are the majority of sexual assault victims: surrounded by strangers. The addition of the close interactions with unfamiliar people, and then the drugs and alcohol. The dorm setting provides a close proximity with strangers, which provides an unsafe place to adventure with drugs and alcohol. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Sexual abuse is conducted by someone with power over the victim. The power is driven by the need of the victim, best described by the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Those needs are required for survival. I am going to go over Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how they connect and the problems that are associated to them for the sexual assault survivor. Starting at the top, you have self-actualization. The problem with this is to have self-actualization, it requires that you have all the bottom layers that build up to self-actualization. As we'll go over, many sexual assault survivors do not have these bottom 4 levels. Therefore, they will never reach the self-actualization. It will not be met. Self-esteem is unmet, as self-blaming is common, and many report feeling disgusted with themselves after being assaulted. Love and belonging is unmet, as many victims are looking to fit in and or to feel loved or liked. For many, this unfulfilled need leads them to the situation that ends in sexual assault. Also, though, much sexual assault results in them feeling even less loved and even more so like they don't belong. Safety. Unmet. Many victims suffer anxiety and lack of feeling safety due to the assault. Physiological. This can also be unmet, as often the perpetrator is an employer or a professor, someone who can greatly affect basic needs and make them so they're not met. Obviously, with all these things being unmet, the anticipated functional level is low, especially low without proper resources, coping mechanisms, and support. Likely health outcomes, re-victimization, PTSD, depression, and suicide. Communicable diseases or infections. STDs are obvious worry and concern for a sexual assault victim. Gonorrhea and chlamydia are the most common STDs diagnosed after a sexual assault. Every sexual assault victim that comes into the ER is medicated prophylactically to treat these two STDs. Only 13% of victims, though, do seek medical attention. Obviously, not anyone can get the needed medications if they're not even seeking medical attention. So this is a great concern. Those who do seek medical attention go to the ER. Unfortunately, in a recent study, it was discovered that only 9.6% of responding hospitals had the needed resources to assist a sexual assault victim. Non-communicable diseases. Mental health consequences are amongst the greatest concerns. Amongst the things that were reported as diagnosed for these victims, PTSD, major depression, alcohol abuse, anxiety, OCD, and bipolar. Some studies suggest that PTSD and problem drinking comorbidity can be explained by the self-medication model, which proposes that survivors drink to cope with the PTSD symptoms. Such drinking can relieve the trauma-related distress, but may worsen PTSD symptoms. As for OCD and bipolar, we often think of obsessive-compulsive conditions and bipolar conditions as more biological or genetic in origin. While these findings are based on a smaller number of studies, they suggest that maybe those conditions are more trauma-related than we previously thought. Self-care and self-harm. 33% of sexual assault victims have suicidal ideations. 13% of victims will attempt suicide. Victims who don't have resources or social support will double their risk for suicide after being assaulted. Here on this scale, you can see loneliness as being like no resources, no social support. And as you see, the suicide probability, it doubles here. It's very high when you combine the sexual assault with the lack of resources, which unfortunately most people who do result in sexual assault, many of them lack resources and lack support. Risk for harm by and to others. The percentage of women who were raped as children or adolescents and also raped as adults was more than 2 times higher than the percentage among women without an early rape history. This was a quote from the CDC. So re-victimization. This is these victims who aren't raped once, but they are raped again later in life that have multiple exposure to sexual assault. Studies show that psychological distress from assault, such as self-blame, often results in re-victimization. A theory, traumatization may cause some to revert to familiar patterns, despite whatever pain it may cause, and some others suggest that women who have been assaulted early learn to associate sex with pain and trauma, and therefore are less likely to be able to distinguish between consent or coercion. Therapy to assist with coping mechanisms, as well as self-defense training, appear to be possible solutions for helping women to gain strength and avoid future assaults. That's all I have today on sexual assault victims and sexual assault survivors. Hopefully you learned a lot.